Hey everybody, welcome to episode 168 of The Glow in Atlanta with my buddy,
What's up, homie?
John Stringer. Here we are again.
Yes, indeed.
I'm gonna share this with some people. And how you doing?
Doing good, man. Glad you all are here.
Yeah.
It's been nice to have you at the crib.
At the
ATL,
crib.
in the A-Town.
We were in Texas, and now we're back in Atlanta
Yes, indeed.
on a beautiful overcast day. And we got some interesting questions that I wanted to. People have been asking a lot over the past week, so I thought it'd be fun to go into them together and explore them together.
Sounds awesome.
And when you're entering, you can share. Hey, Asa, when you're entering, you can share where you're from, how you're doing, what's going on. You can share anytime questions, comments, stories. Interactive space here. We also will have this. This will go up also on Apple Podcasts, on YouTube, on SoundCloud, and other places around the internet too. So happy to have you here in the present moment, in the now, or in the future, or in the past. And we're talking about the past today.
That's right.
Talking about the past. So yeah, some good questions I got. So one is from Krista in Minneapolis. Brian, I just got done watching your Resting into Stillness live video, and I had a question about telling your story. Do you think it is beneficial to retell stories that involve trauma or painful stories, or is it better to let them rest and not retell them to others? Feeling curious. Then a related question from, welcome Helena. Related question from Robin, my buddy in Asheville. Do we sometimes learn valuable lessons from the past? And if so, how can we know if a lesson from the past might help or hinder? So it's sort of an interesting question of the past. We can learn lessons from it, but then we can be holding on to things that hold us back from moving into unknown territory, to new spaces. We can be holding on to traumas.
Yep.
I think it's a really rich question.
It is, yeah.
And one to delve into. Kathy Stringer says,
What's up, Kathy?
Turn up the volume.
Are you saying turn up or thumbs up?
Oh,
good.
She says
good.
it's good. The
There
volume
we go.
is good.
She did like this, we weren't sure.
More energy.
Turn it up.
Come on, get more excited.
That's right.
So, okay.
So the past.
The past.
Yeah.
Resting us, I had a question. Do you think it's beneficial to retell stories that involve trauma? See, I think the thing to me is, what's so interesting about the past is, welcome Christopher, is the past is a story.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's what I've been finding so fascinating about the past, we talk so much about the future and creating our future and making the future into a vision, into a story that we feel excited about and we feel inspired by.
Yeah.
But then there's this question of, or this realization of the past also being a story.
Yeah.
Not this fixed, rigid thing of this is all it was and is ever going to be and all this. Hey, Robin. We're talking about the question that you asked me the other day, so we're delving into that right now. So I think there's this real liberation of realizing that the story of the past is a story.
Yeah.
And then you can retell the story in a different way. And you can retell the story from, I like the word you used yesterday, victory.
Yeah, victory.
So you can retell the story eventually from a place of victory.
Yeah.
Of a sense of, I had this challenge, I had this situation, I didn't know what to do, it was painful, it was traumatic, and I learned a lesson from it, and it became an opportunity for me to grow in my consciousness, to evolve in my consciousness, to expand in my consciousness.
And it's funny too, I think people also have that feeling of when you're in victimization, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have that feeling of with the story and what to do with it and all that, because you're making it so real, you're attached to whatever, the meaning you create. So sometimes that expression might feel good just to get it out. Like even from the victim standpoint, because you've been holding it in and not sharing it. Sometimes that's like the next expression that feels good, you know?
Yeah.
Then sometimes it's, okay, what's the lesson? Let's shift from there to, like what you're saying, the next step might be to see it from a different perspective. And then the next step might be, because it's almost like all these levels of consciousness you can shift into, but if you're down here feeling guilt, shame, etc., the next step might actually just be to be able to acknowledge it and face it. Then the next step might be to be able to start feeling into what is forgiveness. Next step might be recognizing there never was any right or wrong. Next step might be there's only oneness and it's all just a story. and you can choose, like you're saying, you can choose whatever you want, you know?
Yeah.
So to me, it's almost like a progression of what you're ready for, what you want to choose, and it's nothing wrong with choosing any level of it, you know? It's like, I think that's the part of accepting where we are. Like, you may have this idea that I just want to let it all go and be one and create this, but I got this feeling deep down inside that is like this. It's like accepting what is that deep down feeling that you're trying to beat out of yourself or resisting. When you feel into that, sometimes it's to be the victim, you know? Sometimes it's accepting if you have that attachment to that victim story, that's okay. It's not wrong to do that, and it may be the next step in your progression. To get to that point where you can forgive, and to get to that point. So, yeah, you know, I guess it's all relative to where you are, what feels good to you coming next. You know?
Yeah, so it feels like the first step is it's like self-awareness of an honest perception of like, this is my perception of what happened. This is my perception of where it's at. Yeah. So that feels really important as like there's a lot of that happening right now. People like telling their story, and this is the authentic expression of what I felt at the time, how I perceived things, how I looked at things.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And it's funny that because this is no coincidence. Obviously, it happens this way a lot, right? For us all, that the work I was doing this morning was going into feelings of consciousness of all kinds of stuff, things that I participated in or in from this point of awareness, as well as things that have occurred in consciousness and been created, period. Right? But things I fear, like things, and like going into that, I think there comes or at least for me in my journey, it's like I was being shown the things that I fear, to feel into that consciousness that creates those things, right? Not just the consciousness that creates the fear, but the consciousness that even wants to do those things. That's my consciousness. And to stop rejecting it and resisting it. Like all the things we can think of that have been created is our consciousness. And at some point, true freedom is being able to accept all of that, the stuff that feels dark, that we judge as dark. So I was being taken into all the stuff, and I was like, you know what? I kind of like the light, high stuff more. And we've talked about this too before, how the integration process is not resisting and separating it, you know, from low to
it's important.
High to low and all of that. But when it comes to the past, I think those are a lot of times those are our opportunities, because that's the story we created, and it's perfect. Like it's this perfect grace that has allowed us. It's this wife just came out and said, "Can't hear you." So
welcome, Boggy.
Yeah. So our stories are these perfect opportunities to experience and integrate with more of what we are, as far as the consciousness, the unchanging, eternal, holy essence that allows us to create whatever as these individuated points of awareness. That actually gives us the opportunity to begin to see, you know, of course, how it feels, but then to find beauty, perfection, and bliss in our creation once we start letting go of the meaning, which is weird in one sense at this level.
Yeah.
But then at that higher level, it's like it's all perfect, it's all divine, it's all there is no wrong, there's just perfection and creation and art and this, that, and the other. So it's like to get there, there's stages, I think. Or
Yeah, it's
if
really
we choose
interesting.
it, you know.
Yeah. Hey, Kathy, can you share this with the Big Glow community and the Secret Glow and some other spots? I'm not able to share it out here, so if you can do that for us, that would be great.
Rock.
Wherever else. Hey, Amber, welcome. The stages of the story. I mean, this is huge. So it's like, yeah, you have the first stage of the story of, you know, being the victim and this happened and there's trauma in the situation, and that's really important. You know, that's important to acknowledge and be aware and be honest with the perception. And then I think what I'm seeing is like you want to support someone else or yourself, whoever it is, to move through that story.
Yeah.
To becoming the victor, coming out as the victor.
Exactly. Once it's served at this level, once that's like when people say releasing what doesn't serve you anymore, at this level, sometimes that victimization serves you because it moves you into expanding. And then once it stops serving you, if you become attached to it and stuck in it, that's where the resistance to going beyond and forgiving and the next levels or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what people are trying to find relief from, you know?
Yeah.
Being stuck at these levels that no longer work for them, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if there was a lesson that was learned, or if there's a way that you can, there's some, like I think if you're on this path of the evolution of your consciousness, of growth, of
remembering.
Yeah, then everything that you encounter, you use as an opportunity to grow in your consciousness, including things that are really challenging, including they're difficult. Hey, Tracy, including situations where you felt like you were the victim. Whatever, it's all fodder for evolution of consciousness.
Yep.
You know, every single thing you experience, and then like I'm thinking of Oprah Winfrey. You know, and she has like a really difficult story of her childhood, of abuse and poverty, and you know these like whatever you can imagine being the most difficult situation, she was pretty much in it, right? And now she's this, you know, global icon and making such a huge impact on people and wealthy and really, really thriving.
Yeah.
And she like says, well, these situations were the opportunity for me to grow, to become the person that I became.
That's it.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I saw recently somebody said, it might have been Kanye, everything I am is because everything I'm not, or everything I'm not made me everything I am, one or the other. But the reality is, in each of these expressions of the one, the differentiation has a lot to do with the story, the conditioning, even the resistance, the limitations, like all of that stuff is what creates the art. Like every shadow, every refraction, every break and curve and all that stuff, right? So it's like, if there really was this divine, holy, sacred oneness creating all these infinite expressions of itself, but to experience differentiation, right? And then allowing that to operate with a consciousness that thinks it's separate, which we know is often what we're experiencing. The question often becomes, well, why would, like I've asked many times, why would we do that? Because it's such a beautiful, it's actually like a grace. It's actually like grace. It's a beautiful experience to be able to feel a hand and touch, like
someone else,
self, objects, whatever, like the sensory, the sensory creation to see, to perceive difference.
It's like we wanted to have a world.
With
lots of different stuff going on, and stories and dramas,
all
comedies, and
that's it.
What's the other one?
Tragedies.
Tragedies. That's the one. Tragedies.
So all that differentiation, and it's as if remembering is recognizing you don't have to suffer through it, and that you're really the essence of it all.
Yep.
And that you're unchanging.
Yep.
you're good, you're safe, all that stuff, right? But yet being able to navigate it and choose whatever you like. And the reality is we've literally chosen to forget that truth so we could feel like victims, because we wanted to feel, what does that feel like, versus knowing you're the all-power, holy, sacred, unchanging, eternal, right? All right, well, I'm going to feel what it feels like to not be that. Even though we are, but what does that feel like? And then that awakening process is expanding. Like, it no longer serves you. Like, you know you've chosen this. Oh, hell, okay. Now I'm resisting it. I'm not liking it anymore. Ready to expand. And then there's ways to do it, to remember who you are. It's just finding it. It's like the big game to find it. And even that's a journey and fun, you know? And even that's not real.
That's right.
You know?
It's totally true.
Like, even the growth, all the stuff we enjoy, you know?
Yeah.
None of this shit's real, but it's fun.
Yeah.
It's cool,
Yeah.
man. Getting your body in shape, getting your health right, mind, body, spirit, all of it. It's like, it's not really real, but it's fun as hell.
Yeah.
And the people and the folk who are ready to, who aren't attached to that, I think, are attached to that part of the illusion, are actually the ones releasing the suffering the most, because they recognize there's really nothing to change. And like, we get glimpses of it and we start to expand into it more and more, and we feel that bliss and that relief. And then there's a part of us, like for me, from this point of awareness, there's a part of me that isn't ready to give up the game or the attachment to the identification that makes it feel real. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and that's okay. That is totally
Totally part of the game.
Yeah, and it's actually if you think about it, it's actually this beautiful part where part of you think there's some sort of disconnection and something's wrong. Like even me speaking about this thing that's
I
not
like
ready
this
to
line
give it
from
up.
Helena. The soul wants to know all the flavors.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Every ice cream
Yeah.
flavor.
So and even when I'm like, as I'm speaking, when I'm saying that identification is false, it's not real. But at the same time, it's like we kind of enjoy playing this role or playing the hero's journey and expanding and all.
Yeah, you know what else? So to go into that, the hero's journey, and there's welcome Jessica, and there's this sense of so I've had this breakthrough like in these latter stages of my journey of like just really recognizing in a really deep way that we are the storytellers.
Yeah.
You know, because there's that witness consciousness of like I'm not what I'm seeing. I'm not the body. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my emotions. I'm not I'm not this house. I'm not you. I'm not. Everything is not me. I'm just the witness consciousness, which is a good exercise, a valuable exercise. But then I think it's like the next stage is like, I am the body. I am my emotions. I am my thoughts. I am you. I am the house. I am the tree. I am the clouds. It's like I am everything. It's like I am everything. I am nothing, and I'm something specific. I added that third one. I am everything. I am nothing. And I'm something specific. But anyway, so there's this. You distance yourself from the story. I'm not the story. But then it's like, but I am the storyteller. That's what I'm finding is like really empowering. Of like I'm the one telling the story, and when I recognize I'm the one telling the story, then I can tell a different story.
Yeah.
You know, then I can tell a different story. So just like how deep that runs, you know.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like a story of the past is like, am I the victor or not? You know, this is what happened. But what's my story about what happened? What's Oprah Winfrey? What's her story about what happened in her past? She made herself the victor. She made herself, oh, this was an opportunity for me to learn and grow.
That's it.
But she could tell a different story, you know, and be living a different life. So you start to recognize the power of yourself as a storyteller. It's just a huge breakthrough.
Think of it in terms of domination. You know that what is it called? Well, in the sexual world, there's something called domination.
Familiar with that? Yeah.
Submission and domination or whatever. Anyway, point being.
BDSM.
Yeah, point being is someone may want to be submissive, but I've heard you've got a safe word. You can say the safe word.
Right.
So you get to experience this limitation of being commanded and dominated.
Yeah.
And then you can say the safe word, you can get out.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, back to normal.
Yeah.
We're stopping this.
Yeah.
Taking back my power type thing, right? I think of it similarly with like our limitation journey. There's something that's serving us, wanting to identify with being limited. But then we move from limitation to limitlessness, or self-imposed, self-chosen, but we forgot powerlessness to power.
Yeah.
Right? That's kind of with the safe word.
Yeah.
Safe word for most of us is finding whatever practice we can that help. Thank you, BDSM. That's it. Thank you, Christopher. Safe word for most of us is finding, like we're looking for it. What are the practices that help us break out of the limitedness or powerlessness into power? And often it's practices like, what can help me let go of this identification with this story of limitation, of victimhood. That's like the safe word to get into expanding into more power or empowered. Or what can help me what can help me even recognize what I'm holding on to that's creating this limitation? Because sometimes that self-awareness takes some expansion. When you're stuck in the story, you don't recognize you're creating it.
Yeah.
But as soon as you can find something that helps you begin to come into the now, let go of like all that stuff, and then expand the awareness, it's like, oh wow, I do have power to choose, and even power to recognize the meaning I've created, and know that this meaning is not necessarily truth or a fact.
It's a story.
It's a story that's neither right or wrong.
Right.
It's just,
and who's telling the story?
Yeah, and now I can say, okay, safe word, no more limitation.
Yeah.
Let's choose to create this from power.
It's like this recognition that I'm always the storyteller.
Yeah.
Like, who else would there be? There's just me. You know, when I say me, I don't mean me like Brian, you know, the guy who's from, you know, this. I mean like the infinite, the essence, you know? It's like there's only one storyteller, and we are one with that storyteller. So the more we recognize that, the more we have this tremendous power to tell the story.
Yes.
Now, this is an interesting thing that, Tracy, that you wrote. I want to dive into a little bit. So you said, rest in the flow. It's already perfection leading our ultimate heaven on earth story. So my question is, what you wrote, is that true or is that a story? Right? So tell me, is that true or is that a story? And then we'll continue on.
That's good.
Come back to that.
Nice.
But yeah, it's just like this recognition of like, I keep looking, everything that's happening, I'm like, because you get this feeling of like, oh, this is happening to me, or this is, you know, this person's making me do this. But you start to recognize like this, like the real empowerment. So it's keep coming back to like, who's telling the story? You know, I'm telling the story. What story do I want to be telling? Right? So it's like this, when you become present, you become in the moment, you start to recognize who you really are, there's this empowerment to just tell the story how you want to tell it, Anything that can change is a story. That's an excellent answer, Kathy Gates Stringer. I like that. I haven't heard it said that way before. Anything that can change is a story. I would have to agree with that.
That's awesome.
Anything that can change is a story. So then what Tracy said would be a story.
Yeah.
You know, this is perfection, and let's go back to that. I think it's true. I choose to believe my truth.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, so, but if someone says it's not true, you say it's true, someone says it's not true, who's right, who's wrong? That's when we get into this whole battle of like, well, this is the truth. No, this is the truth. So one person has a story, another person has a story, then we argue, we fight, we create division, we create separation. I think that everything in the world is perfect. I think that it's not perfect. Well, you're wrong. Well, you're wrong. So then, like, you think that there's something imperfect about someone saying that there's something imperfect. But if there was absolute perfection, someone saying that it was imperfect, and you saying that was imperfect, would also be perfect.
That's right.
Right? So if it's all perfect, then there's all just variations of stories happening, and there's this realization of stories. So I like that story myself.
Yeah.
I resonate with the story, but I also recognize that it's only a story.
Yeah. And the beautiful way to recognize, or not the beautiful way, one way, if you so chose to recognize it, is when realizing that the only truth is that there's only unchanging, eternal oneness, and really nothing else.
Yep.
Whatever that is, that's our true essence.
Yep.
Then we know that everything created is not unchanging, right? Thoughts, meaning, all these constructs not unchanging. And as soon as we have a belief, you know what I'm saying, that doesn't match unchanging, eternal, whatever that is, then we can see that, okay, really all of this, anything that I choose to believe in, can I really call it the essence of what it is? Not really. The essence of what it is unchanging.
You know, another way to think of it, I like what Kathy said about anything that's unchanging. Anything that has a linear has linear time. Anything has linear time.
Yeah.
So it's like this to this to this, past, present, future.
Yeah.
It's all story.
Yeah.
You know, it's a construction of the mind. You know, so that's another great way to look at it, which is pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, and then we get back to the value of, because for me it's kind of like, okay, so I'm participating in this unfolding timeline that feels separate, real. I'm participating in this whole thing, and then there's this value in being present. There's this value in navigating it from a different level of consciousness and expanded awareness, where I'm enjoying it versus suffering through it, or at times maybe I choose to suffer because it feels good. The point I'm getting at is, the gift of things, right?
Yep.
The gift of the illusion is the creation of the story. So it's not that it's wrong to
Absolutely
create the belief that, well, I believe it's all perfect and everything is working out for the good, and the other person creates this story that, well, I believe that's just bogus and blah, 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 and then somebody else has. It's not that any of that's wrong. It's like that's your gift to create whatever freaking story you feel like creating. There's nothing wrong with it. None of it's right, none of it's wrong. It's all a creation that, if you wanted to make it your capital T truth,
right,
so be it. That's fine.
But I think that the big kind of lesson is most of us don't realize that.
Exactly.
We don't realize that we're the creator of our stories.
And then we get stuck. It's as if flow, like we're talking, like has been referenced. I was thinking about this before. Flow isn't necessary without the illusion.
Yep.
Like, what do you need flow for when everything is eternal?
Everything is now.
Now, and this, that, and the other. Flow is necessary when we're creating the illusion.
Yep. Which goes into another question, which I think you asked me, Tracy, which is there a difference between flow state and enlightenment?
Bingo.
And that would be the difference.
Yeah.
It's like flow state is like a state of consciousness. I'm in the flow of the movement of time and
unfolding
space, and I'm
illusion,
making this happen, making that happen, and doing this. But in the realization of enlightenment is like no time, no space, just the essence. And realizing I am that. So, totally related. I think one can definitely bring forth the other, but to me they're different in what they're pointing at.
Here's a story.
Yeah.
There's a guy who, we've heard this story different ways. Guy who, like the allegory of the cave, all this other stuff. Guy who goes out, sees the light, hurts, and he adjusts, and is like, holy cow, and then comes back to tell everybody and goes through whatever. Hey, it's not real, it's not real. Revision on that story is, and we all have our own revisions on it, but is guy who sees the light, sees the all, girl who sees the light, sees the all, binary who sees the light, sees the all, and recognizes it, and then chooses to...
Non-binary.
Yeah, non-binary, sorry. Non-binary. I didn't mean to leave anybody out. Pansexual who sees the light.
Yes. All-inclusive.
All-inclusive, right. Sees the light, chooses to come back, not to come and change anything and try to convince everybody, hey, it's an illusion, and wake everybody else up, but to come and experience the creation from a state of both knowing it's not real and enjoying.
Yep.
To me, that can be a form of enlightenment as well.
Yep.
That you know, is more empowering. Like it's nothing wrong with being exactly where you are. It's nothing wrong with being at whatever level of consciousness you have chosen to be at. And if you can let go of this feeling of, damn, I gotta change, and I've got, like, a lot of time our desire to expand and change, or I can say from my experience, desire to expand and change has been from judgment of where I'm at in consciousness, you know? And there's nothing wrong with that. That drives us to create all kinds of cool stories too, you know? But often when we get tired of the levels we're at, it's that expanding recognition that presence brings that allows us to, I think, accept. That can be a form of enlightenment, whatever enlightenment is, another story. But if you think of enlightenment as moving to what feels good.
Well, I'm thinking of enlightenment is actually that which is beyond the story. So you can't make can't make a story about enlightenment.
Right.
Right.
Exactly. I like that
Realizing you're that which is beyond the story.
So if we work from that definition, then yes, we're already that.
Yes.
Which is beyond the story. We're already that which is complete, knows
transcends
all,
the story.
Transcends it all.
Yeah.
And then being able to, it's almost as if we're feeling more into that and bringing it into this play, you know? It's like bringing more of that expanded power or that oneness into this, which I don't even know.
I think it's like what you're saying is like you start to be able to play in the story.
Yeah.
You know, you start to be able to. I'm gonna participate in the story and create the story.
The story.
Like that line from there's tribute to Jesus. I think sums it up perfectly. Be in the world, but not be in the world, but not of it. That's your boy, Jesus.
It's my homeboy, yeah.
Be in the world, but not of it.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it's like fully in it, fully engaged. Like we're doing all kinds of fun, amazing, creative stuff over the next year together, which we're gonna tell you a little bit about shortly.
Yeah.
But then it's also you can only really play in the world in a really fun, playful way if you realize you're not of it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too serious.
And
it's like really scary.
Yeah, you get stuck. You don't want things to change. You hold on to
so
things
much fear
that have passed their expiration date.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
You start drinking stale milk.
Yes, yes, yes. All the temporal things like milk. Yeah. You hold on to. Don't spoil. Don't go away. Don't finish.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So another part of this I want to delve into, I think, is really fascinating is feelings. So I talked about a little bit about feelings this past week too, and it's like people are trying to access their feelings. I think is what happens is so they're feeling pain, they're feeling sadness, they're feeling anger. Really good to like get in touch with that, and acknowledge that, right?
Yeah.
And connected to that, how do you move it? How do you talk about it? There's usually a story.
Yeah.
You know. So what I'm like learning to do is it's not so easy. Thanks, Robin. What I'm learning to do, it's not so. Robin says, for those who are listening audio, this is a super conversation with capital letters. Thank you, Robin. So this is interesting too, Robin. So what I'm learning to do is it's hard because I'm very literal, but listen to somebody's story and connect with the feeling that's beyond the story and not get caught up in the story. Because what you said, I think, is really important. Like, there could be stages to the story.
Yeah.
So someone can say, well, this happened to me, that happened to me. And in my mind, I go, well, that's not true. You know?
Right.
But I think when you're really conscious present, you can go, well, what's the feeling behind this?
Yeah.
She's feeling sad, or they're feeling angry, you know?
Yeah.
Let me connect with the feeling, and we'll deal with the story later.
Yes, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I found that's an important thing, of like just kind of tuning into the feeling.
That's good, yeah.
Beyond the story.
And it's funny you say that. I think since it's all one consciousness, it's almost as if when someone you look at as other is bringing this story of whatever to you, your ability to not judge the meaning they're creating, and then hold the people call it holding the space or whatever, but being able to feel into and be present with that part is the same as doing it for yourself. Yeah, it's like being able to go in and feel what's arising and bring presence to it and awareness to it without buying into the meaning about it. Like I was doing an intuitive reading thing yesterday. We have this group where we do this.
Yeah.
And for the first time in a while, I had a lot of anxiety come up as I'm doing it and listening to what's coming through. Now, I've done this so many times, and yet the fear that began to come up, I recognized two things. One, don't resist, feel into it, but lighten up, don't make it serious.
Yeah.
And then two, recognize the meaning I'm ascribing to this sensation and this energy. Just like I'm calling it fear, I can call it excitement. It doesn't. I have the power to choose what I want to call what I'm creating. So accept it, don't resist it.
See, that's a beautiful example of story.
Yeah, exactly.
Story, reframe it.
It's the meaning.
Yeah.
But it takes that. It's almost as if it takes presence to awaken to that power to choose differently.
Yeah, it takes presence for
Whether
sure.
it's this point of awareness of myself bringing the presence, this point of awareness, or that point of awareness. Don't matter how the presence comes in, just as long as somebody chooses the presence, it can help everybody wake up.
Be present. Yeah. There's this deeper level. What did we miss here?
I find you release.
Replying to Jane. I missed Jane.
Oh.
Anyway, do that, Kathy. Reply to people.
Yes,
answer
Kathy.
questions. There's another level I think is even really rich too. So within myself, or within yourself, right, or yourself, or whoever self, the self. So it's like to distinguish between the feeling and the story. I think is so big, and I'm just starting to realize how big that is. In my personal relationship and family relationships and people I'm interacting with. It's like there's a feeling, and be able to say, okay, I'm feeling this. But I don't have to attach any story to it, actually, at all. Yeah. And that's what I was trying to talk about when I made a video earlier this week, is like, there doesn't need to be a story about the feeling. It doesn't mean you don't acknowledge your feelings. It's really valuable to acknowledge your feelings.
Yes.
So I'm feeling sad, right? Why am I feeling sad? This is where it gets dangerous. Yeah. I'm feeling sad because of you. You made me feel sad, right? This is what we do. We make the story. Yeah. Right? But maybe there is no story necessary for the feeling. Right. Sometimes the feeling might be able to give you into a deeper awareness of something within your life, or making a movement a certain way or decision. But a lot of times it's just feeling, and a lot of times it's not even personal feelings. Yeah. It's like in the collective, Especially I think people with more of a feminine essence, they'll be feelings in the collective, and they'll just be feeling the feeling the feels, as they say.
Some call them empaths.
And you don't need to make a story about it.
Yeah,
you just need to feel it, and kind of like you're like doing the work of the collective by kind of like by transmuting it.
Yes.
Transmuting the energy.
That's it.
Right.
Because oftentimes I look at it as the levels. Like the way it's come through for me is the levels. Everything's vibration and frequency anyway. Yeah. But we create it. How do you know? Because vibration and frequency change. Like we can choose different levels of it. There's difference in it. Yeah. So vibration frequency is our fundamental primary creation. And then feeling, sensation is that next level of creation. We create that. Based on this frequency, I'm going to create this sensation, whether it's kinesthetic, whether it's color, whether it's this, I'm going to use my senses to create some sort of interaction with that vibration frequency. On the next level is meaning, and that's the story level you're talking about, right? That's another creation. Like every single one of these levels is a creation, but now this is a framework of just trying to simplify something. So, take it with a grain of salt, but each of those levels, if we think about how we interact with what we create and what arises, what arises is what we create, because if nothing wasn't happening,
storyteller. With a storyteller.
So since from the vibration to the sensation to the meaning or the story, exactly what you just said, if we can accept what's arising on the sensation side, accept it as our creation from all of this, there begins to be this expansion of an acceptance or allowing of the perfection that's happening. And then the level of meaning begins to, like even the word perfection, right? It's like all of this is illusion. It's not real, but perfection feels good, right? what is unfolding is perfectly for me. Like, you helped me recognize this today, actually, during this.
That's right.
You know, what is everything that's happening for me feels good. It's
Because-
another level of consciousness that feels good. That doesn't mean it's real, you know?
Yeah.
So don't get stuck in it.
Don't get stuck in anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's the Buddha. That's his big realization. You know, like, not attachment. You know, everything you're experiencing is temporary.
Yeah.
The only thing that's not temporary is the unchanging, which is the essence of who we are, which we can't put into words.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So the identification, once we're able to identify as the eternal oneness that's unchanging, that's the end of the suffering. However, what are we holding on to? Some of us are holding on to the experience of it being real, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But once we can recognize it, we can probably stop beating ourselves up about it and enjoy holding on, you know?
Yeah.
And then the next level of the power to create,
Yeah.
like our power, what are we choosing to create?
Yeah.
If we can have awareness of how we're identifying what we're holding on to and what we're choosing to create, that awareness feels better and better as we expand and go through these levels of consciousness. And that brings me back to the story that I've enjoyed telling is alignment.
Yeah.
Alignment is the thing that helps us level up
Yeah.
in consciousness
Yeah.
and begin to recognize
Yeah.
that identification, what we're holding on to,
Yeah.
and what we're choosing to create. And then alignment comes through those practices that, you know, whether it's mindfulness, bringing ourselves to the now, whether it's whatever practices, yada, yada, yada. So for a lot of people, that reminder, I think, is helpful, because then they can stop and come back to now and say, okay, let me practice again, see what I'm choosing, and make some new choices, you know, and then enjoy it more versus create a story of suffering.
Yeah.
more,
It's
you
kind
know?
of like just empowerment, really, is what it feels
Empowerment.
like.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, Jane, I see you this time. Let's see what we got here. Brian mentioned we can feel the collective consciousness, which is what happens to me, and can really drain me. And how do I know the difference between collective energy, or is it my own feelings? Okay, great question.
Yes.
Love the question. Here's my personal answer. If we're talking about everything being one, is there really any difference? Right?
Yeah.
You're part of the collective, so you're not separate from anything, anywhere. So is it my feelings or his feelings, or does it really matter? As the sun peeks out through the clouds, it's a feeling, you know? It's a feeling. So that was what I was going to suggest as an exploration, as kind of an experiment, is can you notice what you're feeling emotionally and physically without attaching any story to it at all? So you can notice a story. Oh, I have a story that it's John's fault, or that it's because I'm in Atlanta, or whatever. But can you just notice that those are stories and they're not absolute truths? They're just stories. And the more you can like free yourself from the story, and the next stage is it frees you to create your own story about what you're experiencing. So it's like noticing the difference between the feeling and the story, I think, is really, really big, because people get a feeling and right away they go to the story, which could be a victimization story. Whatever story it is not true. It's a story. Even the story of empowerment's not true. Just a story. But you may prefer that one better. I certainly do. Right? So it's like you can make that distinction and notice that difference of like, this is a feeling. I don't have to make any story about it.
Yeah.
Right? It's just a feeling, and it's gonna pass. Every feeling passes.
Yeah.
By definition, the feeling is temporary. So that's what I was trying to say earlier, is like, we don't have to make a big deal about feelings. It's like, oh, here's a feeling. Here's a feeling. Here's a feeling. Here's a feeling. Now I'm feeling this. Now I'm feeling this. Now I'm feeling this. What are you feeling?
A lot of times too, our resistance, like I use the word resistance, meaning often the cause of suffering we don't want to keep feeling, right? Like resistance, to use an easier word, when we're ready to move on from suffering, you know, a lot of times we recognize there's resistance involved, meaning there's some sort of judgment, there's some sort of unwillingness to accept what's arising, whether it's through judgment, whether it's through resistance, doesn't want it to change or whatever. Point being is, if we're able to, like acceptance, I think, is another one of those paths that if we're able to get to that place you're talking about where we're in the present and the things are arising.
Yeah.
Like these creations and stories and vibrations and feelings that feel like, where is this coming from? We're uncertain or whatever. Well, if we're able to stay in that place of, I call it alignment, but presence in the now, we can often begin to navigate it without resistance. Like today for me, it was these lower vibrations of the things I used to call evil, and the things that you know I would judge
Evil.
as and resist and not want to ever happen. It was like I was being those things were just arising in my consciousness.
I got a new definition for evil. I just
Go ahead.
came into my consciousness.
Yeah.
Evil. We're going to define evil as that which I think I'm not one with.
Exactly.
That's the new definition for evil.
That's good, baby. That's good. So the beautiful part is when we're creating all this stuff and it arises, the things we don't like and resist and don't want to participate in. The words of accept it all just came to mind. What we don't want to feel is often creating the suffering. That's the resistance.
Yes.
We don't want to feel it, so we push
Absolutely.
it away. We don't want to look at it. We don't want to think about it.
We don't want to recognize we're one with it.
Yeah. So if there's oneness, we are all the consciousness creating every idea, belief, thought, intention, this, that, and the other. It's all one, right? But we create the separation of good and bad, evil, right and wrong, righteousness, not unrighteousness, all this stuff. So the point is, part of that awakening path to releasing the suffering is releasing the resistance to those things that we think of as other. Okay, you can't reject your creation and think you'll be free. You can't
reject.
You can't fear your illusion.
You can't reject what you are.
The essence, but remembering the essence is the unchanging still holiness. So all this stuff we're creating is really about the meaning we've assigned to all these different vibrations and frequencies and intentions and what happens in the world of appearance and threat of murdering this guy and this, that, and the other. All this fear stuff is all based on the belief in the separation as being real and the limitation being real and all that, right? So the problem becomes, it's almost as if often we resist letting go of that. We resist letting go of our belief in the false identities. And because of that resistance, the suffering keeps happening. But then when we come to stillness or presence or alignment, whatever word, that awareness helps us see that we don't have to keep, one, judging ourselves for whatever we're attached to, but secondly, that we do have other options. We can let go of that attachment to this false identity and create a different journey if we so choose. Or we can just say fuck it all and let it all go and be like, it's just what do you want to create? And often we're always choosing what we want to create. We're just subconsciously doing it all and unaware. And so we suffer so much. The more awareness we can create, the more we can enjoy what we're creating. Because all of it's our creation. All of it. That's the crazy thing. All of it is our creation.
That's the message, and realizing that and recognizing that. Chris says, hey, Brian and John, my story is I love you both. Definitely working on resistance and being in acceptance. Our story is we love you too,
we love
Chris.
You too, sweetie.
So thank y'all for being here, Grace and Karen and Chris and everybody. I'm not able to follow the thread as closely today as normal because we're getting into some deep, beautiful stuff.
What are you creating, my friend?
What am I creating? I'm creating a retreat on New Year's Eve.
Yes.
Let's talk about our retreat.
What's that gonna feel like?
We got a retreat December 29th to January 1st.
Yes.
In the great state of Florida. And I'm really excited about it. John's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Kathy, Annie.
Kathy, why don't you come out and join us?
Michael Singer. Michael Singer is the best-selling author of The Untethered Soul. We got a private
and the Surrender Experiment.
And the Surrender Experiment. We got a private gathering with him that we're really excited about.
It's going to be a Q&A session.
Yeah.
talk he'll do.
And we did this last year, and it was phenomenal. So this is like next level, level 2, level 2.0.
There she is.
And
I was trying to get you to talk about the. Oh, good.
there's
good.
a delay.
Oh wow, that was a nice delay.
So John will be doing music. He'll be doing his beautiful music and his sharing his concert. There's
There
Kathy.
she is. Hey, baby, say hello.
Hi.
Kathy's going to be sharing all sorts of amazing truths and wisdoms.
I've been enjoying my story and
She's
resisting
enjoying
it.
her story.
Enjoying
Ah.
it and resisting it.
Yeah.
Um,
Gainesville, Florida, by the way. Somebody asked where.
yeah, I put a link on there for you guys if y'all want to check it out in the comments.
For those listening and haven't missed it, and still in 2018, it's bit.ly/BG as in Bigelow, NYE as in New Year's Eve, 2. BGNYE2.
And I'll put a link there too, so that they
Perfect.
have a link.
Oh, perfect. In the description?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're going to have kirtan and drum circle, meditation, mindfulness walks, amazing food, incredible nature. It's like, what is it, 200 acres? It's close to 200 acres of a
It's huge.
natural preserve in Florida, which is really special. So be able to walk those grounds, and it's this deep silence. So it's a place where you can easily access this stillness that we're talking about, this presence, the silence that we're talking about. And you can hang out with us and be with us.
Story we're creating is we're creating this beautiful sense of community, connection, and collective awakening to empower us to create beautiful stories even outside of this kind of retreat, but helping us remember, what do we want to create? And what have we been creating that's not serving us anymore, that we're ready to release? What would I prefer to identify as? Like, whether it's the essence, whether it's some limited form of the essence, and then what do I envision my life to look like? And many of us are ready to actually listen from a higher level of consciousness of what that looks like. So we facilitate a way to do that.
And specifically 2019, what do we want to create? What's the stories we want to create?
Yes.
2019.
Yes.
So.
And now, instant manifestation too. Right here, right now. So we can watch it unfold. Yep.
so you guys mentioned the Q&A with best-selling author Michael Singer.
Yes, we did.
Yes, and John's going to get to perform a song for him.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's going to be
I'll
amazing.
say yes.
Yes.
I'll say yes.
Yes.
We're creating all kind of amazing magic to be that we're grateful for, as far as relationships, friendships, being able to travel together,
Community.
being able to bring people who are seeking more empowered ways of creating and experiencing life. Being able to bring them in and share with them what's working for us, not because they need fixing or help. They just desire. That's what they're desiring. They want to move into that.
Creation.
So, into more empowered creation. So we're sharing that because of that reason, out of love, And so, bottom line, join us if you're led. Check out the video. Annie, it's a Big Glow Productions and Healing Arts Management collaboration.
Yes, I'll go put the link on.
Yes, check that video out.
Bye, Kathy.
Bye.
You can get a taste of what we experienced last time. I think it was a very beautiful and organic. Some things we plan out, some things we don't, right?
Always that way.
Yeah. We
Always
just let
that
it
way.
flow.
Yeah, Annie's mom's going to be there. So if you want to meet Annie's mom,
Yay!
this is the moment to do it.
Yes, that'll be beautiful.
Yeah. Vision, New World Order. We probably won't use that term.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Vision of New World Order, yes.
Yeah. Anything else we got?
Oh, yeah. So one last thing that was popping up for me, since my story of a background is largely Christian,
Yeah.
I've been coming back to the beauty of that
Mm.
and really loving the story I've been experiencing, as far as taking back the beauty in that whole thing, because of all the judgment like we talk about judgment of like how we want people to stop judging those who choose a certain sexual path and, you know, who are identifying as other things. It's like, what about the judgment of those who are choosing Christianity and to identify as an exclusionary, right? So if you throw all that judgment out, you can start to see the beauty.
So you're saying like people judge Christians? Is that what you're saying?
Big time, yeah.
Like fundamentalist Christians, or okay,
time.
I got it.
And we judge a lot of those things that are different from our belief set, right?
Right.
Like, oh, they're extremist Muslims and all this. There's a whole lot of judgment that I feel like gets in the way of being able to see and appreciate without all the suffering, you know, and the fear and all this other stuff. So, point being is, been able to work through and release a lot of that judgment. I won't say I've released it all, but but as I'm releasing, I'm starting to see just the beauty in creating that bridge from what we think is different and seeing the wholeness in it all.
Yeah.
Like in the Yeshua's or Jesus, one of my favorite teachers to look at. And even if the Gospels and all that stuff didn't get it exactly perfect and all this stuff, when you find these beautiful nuggets of wisdom that relate to what you're hearing, you start to see like I think Alan Hoffman talks about this. I thought it was Ruka, but when I looked it up in Hebrew, I think it's more like, it's like R-U-A-C-H or something. I don't know how that's pronounced, like Rauk. Don't know what it's, how you
Dale
say it.
would say it for us.
Dale could probably say it.
Dale, where are you? Tell us how to say it.
Yeah, tell us how to say R-A-U-C-H or whatever that is. But the word for Holy Spirit, right? So looking at that, some people, I think he's described it as breath, etc. Well, when you look it up, I was just doing a cursory study of it, nothing too deep. Point being is, what I started to recognize is it's the same in meaning as what we think of as source energy. Source energy is an expression of source, right? If you think of it that way, you don't have to. This isn't gospel, but if you think of it that way, like, what is source energy? Well, what if a synonym of it was Holy Spirit?
Yeah.
What if a synonym of it was source energy is throughout everything. Like, source energy is like an expression. It's actually source energy is actually the oscillations that compose frequencies, right? It's actually the whatever power that allows that to happen, and the awareness of it is consciousness, right? So consciousness and source energy are like what it is. It's everything. It's what we are. It's what we are. And I bring that up to say, what if this Yeshua dude was just trying to wake people up to that fact and try to show them how they can have mastery in the creative journey? You look at all these stories of him casting out demons, healing, doing miraculous. He brought 3 people from the dead and all this stuff. Okay, it's all just a damn story. This right here is just a story. So is that. You know what I'm saying? Point being is,
in a lot of ways, those stories are more interesting
than
the stories we're telling these days.
Fascinating, you know? It's like, wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So Jesus is my hero.
Nice.
But he's also me. He's also you. He's
Christ
also,
consciousness.
Yeah, Christ consciousness.
Yeah.
Whether that happened or not isn't the point to me. It's more of, do we believe in limitless possibilities, and do we choose to go that way and experience it for ourselves? You know, that's really.
Well,
to me,
I had a
point.
realization about this too. I'm really glad you're bringing this up, because I have realizations through this series. I'm learning a lot, a lot of breakthroughs. So I was with my friend Thisa 2 episodes ago, and I was asking her how she went from this little conservative town in Ohio to having these awakenings of consciousness, And I also was like a little conservative, and you kind of were too, I think. Yeah. So I grew up Catholic.
When in the presence of others.
so she said, like, well, I grew up and I rejected a lot of the religious dogma that I grew up with, but I did feel this connection with Jesus. And that led me to this awakening in consciousness through my relationship with Jesus.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I think that that's true for me too. I never thought of it. I never like
Same for me,
gave the dude credit, you know?
Yeah.
But I feel like when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, he was like this figure that was just this really loving figure, forgiveness, compassion,
A little bit of toughness.
connected, tough. But also in that episode, we were talking about like embracing the shadow, awakening, embracing the animal, like the parts that you think are like not
Yes.
holy, you know?
Big example of that.
Right. So what he would do is like his friends were like the prostitutes and the sinners and the outcasts and people
Yep.
with disease, you
Yep.
know? And he's like, these are my friends, you know?
Yep,
these,
the
these
cheats, the scoundrels.
These are the people I hang out with, you know?
Yeah,
You want to
man.
be friends with me? You hang out with these people. These are my friends. And like he didn't like the people who he thought were hypocritical, you know, people who are running the church and the priestly class.
And all the people that had come up with all these legalistic, you're right, you're wrong,
Yes.
this, that, and the other.
The judgments.
Zap the love
Yeah.
out of it. Just zap
Yeah.
the acceptance out
Yeah.
of it, you know?
Yeah. Yep. All you need to do is love your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
That's it.
And love the one.
Yeah. No, there's a
Yeah.
part. I'll get the
It's like-
exact quote and share it in. But someone asked him like, you
What
know,
is the greatest
there's all these
command?
commandments to go
Yeah.
to heaven. What is, you know, which one is the most important? Which one? He's like, love your neighbor as yourself.
First,
That's it.
well, he said this.
Love God.
Love the Lord your God with all your heart,
Yeah,
mind,
that's right.
soul.
That's
the
right.
second one is like it.
Yeah.
Love your neighbor as yourself.
So it was
right?
just like it. Yeah.
Now that's just a quote. I get a brownie point for remembering the quote. I gave
Yeah.
it to myself. But the reality is, like looking into what that is, it's almost he's saying you could make a lot of meaning out of
recognize
it.
the oneness.
Yeah, recognize
Yeah.
the oneness.
Yeah.
Love the I am.
Yep.
Love the essence
Yep.
with all your mind, heart,
Yep.
and soul, right?
Yep.
Because God is our construct meaning
Yeah.
now. But whatever that mysterious essence and force is, love it with all your heart, mind, and soul. And then secondly, accept it with all your heart, mind, and soul. But the second command being like it, see the other as yourself.
Yep.
Accept them. Just
Yep.
like you're loving, accepting
Yep.
the I am, that's the essence of everything, do that with the other. And it's like that interconnected play of acceptance, of love.
Yeah.
What is love? Even the Christian Bible is one of the things I first learned an expanded look at love.
Mm-hmm.
Love is patient, kind, does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, keeps no records of wrongs, all these things. 1 Corinthians 13, I looked at that, and that was kind of like my North Star. And then through the practice of aligning with Source, you begin to see how those words and the meaning, you get to experience expanding into that. Because it's one thing to argue and believe this, that, and the other, but it's another thing to experience and start tapping into that knowing that knows what the hell it's talking about and
Yeah.
showing you how to apply it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, the construct of Christianity, even that came about way after Christ. First century
Totally.
came up with that. It's even in the
Yeah.
Bible, like Acts.
Yeah.
If you read Acts, it tells you they were first called Christians in this little area,
Yeah.
right? So if you go back to the essence of what this guy was teaching, he was actually saying these words are not my own, they are the Father's. He was saying I and the Father are one. This guy was talking about alignment and accessing that knowing consciousness and being a channel of that knowing consciousness, and it was showing up in all kinds of abilities too.
Yeah.
Now, this is if the story was something that was actually created in form, right? It was showing, you can see he would have knowing about sending his guys, go to this town, there'll be a cult there, and this, that, and the other, bring it back, and then he rides in on the cult, right? It's like, that's like psychic awareness, right? He's had all these things. He's like, okay, somebody touched my garment, and what? Okay,
See,
you're healed, and raising folk.
I think
just
that the
amazing,
more
man.
you recognize yourself as the storyteller,
Yeah,
the more you know the story, because you're the one writing it.
yeah.
You know, and we're just like tapping into that like more and more.
Yeah.
So it's like really rich territory to delve into. I'm glad we're like exploring it.
Yeah, so it's
Today.
fun. The point of that reason I brought that up, it's such a fun exploration to recognize that just like this story of more than one of us being here
Right.
is not really true.
Mm-hmm.
you could say the same thing of the Christian story of Jesus. But it is a creation that, if you look at it, you can really find some value in, just as if you look at this creation story.
There's a guy named Jordan Peterson. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Yeah, check him out on YouTube. I think he's trained as a psychologist. He's trained in psychology, I think. But he's taking the stories of Jesus, the myths, if you will, of Jesus, and he's like, these stories are really important because of the messages behind them.
Bingo.
And we don't want to lose, as people who are scientists, we don't want to lose these stories. We want to these are archetypical stories, you know? And we have to get to the messages behind them and really retain these stories and the value of them and share them.
And scientists even know that to argue of whether we're real or not, some of these scientists know that that's kind of like a silly silly thing, because they know it's not really form's not even real. Like the physicists, they know that this is kind of a construct that our minds have created, but it's not really real, and everything's connected through this field and all that. Like, they know this stuff, so to argue whether Jesus was real or not is just as silly. You know, it's like, that's kind of not the. I mean, you could do that if that feels good to you, but at some point that stops feeling good.
It's like arguing. It's like I started talking about first, like arguing about the story. This story or that story. The story is just a story. But yeah, feeling that truth behind the story, I think, is where it's at.
Yep, love that, man.
Yeah,
love that. So that was the only thing that was coming up for me. I love what came up for you.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Yes.
I
like this phrase. The only history is his story. Cool. I like it.
Yep. His story and her story.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank y'all. We love you guys. Thanks for being here. See a lot of you on the replay. Just keep sharing your feedback and ask questions and comments, and it's a continuing conversation. And we hope to see you at the New Year's retreat. So check out that link. If you have any questions, register, and see you soon.
See you soon.
See you in the next now.